I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Tales from Godric's Hollow, the world's only Harry Potter podcast. I am the muggle of the show, one of your co-hosts, Josh Brown. I am joined by the man who took my hand and is leading me on this adventure together. Not just together, him and I, but together as in you guys out there listening, because we're all on this journey as one. Matt Sonnenberg.
How's it going?
It's going great, Matt. We're
you enjoying
through
the
this book.
journey?
Yeah.
It's good.
I'm actually, okay, the recording schedule is kind of nuts, right? And there's a responsibility to read a lot in a short amount of time, to get ready to record several episodes. You know, if we're pulling the curtain back and showing who the Wizard of Oz really is, we've got to talk about that kind of stuff. But I will say I'm a little disappointed that the reading is going to slow down.
You see, and that's, well, okay, so like I said, we're pulling back curtain a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that going into this, like we said, we're going to read.
Yeah.
But I told you I was going to, make up the schedule, letting us know what we were going to read what week and, go from there.
Right.
What I didn't tell you is that I wanted to have a huge launch week and launch multiple episodes in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just threw that at you and it's like, are you okay with this? And like, well, at that point, I couldn't really say no. Well,
no.
I could have, but
you backed me into a corner. You really did.
Yeah. There was a reason I didn't bring it up right away, but we made it work.
Yep.
Even though we had to split it up a little bit differently than we had originally planned. But in any case, like I know what you mean, and that's part of the reason for most of the schedule, especially once we slow down. I still kept it at like 2 chapters per week.
Yeah.
Because I do think that, especially in these early books, the chapters are shorter, and there is a lot of content in them, but it's at the same time it's something new, and you just want to keep going, yeah. And it's going to be hard to hold back and say, okay, no, I read my 2 chapters for the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, because I'll want to go ahead and get ahead, and
yeah,
I mean, thankfully I'm taking notes, but by the time we would go back and record about, several chapters back, like, it loses a little bit of the integrity, because I already know what's to come.
Exactly. And that's where I'm not sure is, like, I when we started this, I didn't know, how fast you read.
Right.
But like we've mentioned briefly, like, between my wife and I,
mm-hmm.
like, we have completely different reading speeds.
Sure.
Like, I will like this first Harry Potter book, I'd probably, if I was just reading casually, if I wasn't trying to plow through the whole thing, I'd probably take 3 to 5 nights worth of reading to read through it, mostly because it's an easy read and I've read it many times before.
Sure.
My wife, if she sits down to read this book, she'd have it done in probably like 3 hours.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to me.
Right.
But so I didn't know where you were. I didn't know if you could plow through this book in 3 hours, or if it was going to take you 3 hours for a chapter.
Well, could or want to are two different things. Also, like, I'm trying to soak it in, so not trying to speed read through it, and I'm also trying to take notes while reading as well.
Sure.
To benefit the podcast, because that's ultimately the most important thing.
Because I'm taking notes too this time, which I've never done before while reading Harry Potter, at least. And my read time is greatly exaggerated from what it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes so much longer because not only am I making sure I'm reading everything to see if there's anything I missed or anything I want to talk about, anything I want to point out, but then, taking breaks, every page or two to make notes about it. So
yeah. It's unique. So yes, I'm enjoying the journey so far. I am going to be bummed when it tones down to like a chapter or two per week. It's going to be like I'm watching Game of Thrones or something, where it's like I want to know what happens, but I gotta wait a week. I'm going to have to slow myself down. I can't marathon it for the sake of the podcast.
And that's going to be the problem is because it's the Netflix style where you have all of the episodes sitting there in front of you in this book.
Right.
You could just marathon and keep going and going and going, but you have to treat it like a series on a network where you only get one per week.
It's tough, Matt. It's tough.
Yep.
Also, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but Valerie, we are reading together. So she's actually doing the brunt of the reading. She's reading out loud because she likes to do voices. So she's like thoroughly enjoying that aspect of it. But that allows me to have my laptop out, sitting next to her, and like be taking notes as she's reading.
That's actually an awesome way to do it.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and like I don't feel guilty because like at first I was like, oh, this is kind of cheating. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not any different than me listening to it like on
to the audio
version
book
or something.
Sure.
Plus, she's enjoying it. She's getting a kick out of it. We're laughing at her attempts to do different voices. That's fun.
Well, I know what we're doing next month when we get together. Val, get
also,
ready for this.
Reading Hagrid's lines is not something that's easy. Like reading it to yourself is difficult, but reading it out loud, oh.
Yep. That's what I said. Like you're almost better. I think maybe. Well, like I've always said, like if you just kind of gloss over it and kind of get the idea of what he's saying, it's easier than if you actually try to slow down and read it word by word.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's the same would hold true when you're reading it out loud. If you kind of just blurt it out, it's probably going to come out cleaner than if you try to read it word by word.
Yeah, you kind of have to like let your eyes get a little bit lazy and like just start blending the letters together and let your head fill in the missing letters because there's some definite...
Put your beer goggles on.
Yeah. Like those 3D picture books, where you just like stare at them and then you just let your eyes just drift off.
Stare through the book.
All of a sudden there's a line jumping out of the page and... Because your head's just making up stuff.
Can you actually do that?
Yes.
You can get those to work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I for life of me cannot.
Yeah.
I've tried for endless hours.
Sure.
Like I know we had them back in... my dad was actually my third grade teacher.
Okay.
So when after school, we would just stay, like he had to stay, I think it was an extra half hour after school was over.
Sure.
In case any like parents wanted to come in and talk to him or something, in more or less office hours.
Right.
Kind of thing. So he had to stay and he was our ride. I mean, because that made the most sense. It's not like my mom was going to come pick me up half an hour earlier. So we just waited in his classroom, and he had some of those books there. And so I would try and try and try. I never got the hang of it. Yeah. Still to this day, I cannot make those work.
I remember
it bothers me a little bit.
Trying to like explain it to people, like how to do it, and you just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like trying to teach somebody how to wiggle your ears. Like,
sure,
that you could do it. Like if you could do it, and the sensation and like the weird little muscles that it takes to do it, but you can't explain to somebody how to make that happen.
Or how to roll your tongue.
Right. Yeah. It's just you either do or you don't. So.
Most of those cases, I don't. So.
Maybe you need to just practice reading Hagrid's lines out loud. Maybe that's a good first start.
All right.
As I said at the beginning of the show, this is episode 5. We are going to be covering 2 chapters this episode, chapter 7 and chapter 8. Double your pleasure, double your fun. They were shorter chapters, so yep. I know why you put them together. And thematically, they kind of made sense to be discussed all in one go round. Do you have anything you wanna start with before we get to the world famous recap of last week's episode?
I think we're at the time for the recap.
Oh boy, this is my favorite part, Matt.
Absolutely.
This is where I shine here. So last week, aka yesterday, aka hour ago, um, chapter 5. Not chapter 5. Chapter 5 was episode 4.
Now you're just going to confuse yourself.
Yeah, next week, Matt, it's going to be glorious. Tonight, something else. Episode 4, we covered chapter 5.
Chapter 6.
We covered chapter 6. Chapter 6 of Sorcerer's Stone, the far superior name of the Harry Potter series. And most of this chapter took place on a train.
Yes.
We started off learning that Harry had to be ignored at the Dursley household for about a month before school started. And from there, he had to beg and plead for a ride to the train station, which only happened because Dudley was on his way to go get his pigtail surgically removed, as you do before school starts. Part of the grooming process. And Mr. Dursley kind of laughed at him because Harry told him that he had to go to platform 9 3/4, which nobody believed was a thing. And they were kind of the assumption that they're going to drop Harry off. He would have nowhere to go because that's not a real platform to go stand on, and especially to catch a train on. And Harry was probably just going to live at the train station the rest of his life. Like, he was going to be a guy with a guitar case, opened up, people throwing dollar bills in, and making a living underneath, underground in the train station. Thankfully, that didn't happen, though, Matt, because we met this incredible family named the Weasleys.
Yep.
They have tons of kids, a countless amount of kids. Like, you can't even count them. There's so many of them, including a set of twins, which are going to be good fun, because twins always add a little something extra to a story, from the shenanigans and mischief point of view, of course. And we met Ron, the youngest boy of the family, who Harry kind of befriended quickly. Kind of saw a lot of himself in Ron, I think. Kind of, just ignored and possibly bullied in life, and didn't have a lot going for him. A lot of high aspirations. Like, Ron has, like, his very successful older brothers who are going to the school to live up to and to try to aspire to be as good as. And of course, Harry knows that he's world famous, and everybody expects him to do great things, and he has no idea why. So he has all this built-in hype that he has to try to live up to. So him and Ron are hanging out. They buy some chocolate frogs with some trading cards in them because Ron's a collector. Ron enjoys the collection aspect of things. Chocolate frogs.
Good fella.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like a guy like that, Sticks to his guns. He's dedicated to collecting them all. Doesn't feel complete until he has a complete set. I like it. I like the way that man thinks.
Yep.
Chocolate frogs, all kinds of candy. Harry's just going crazy because he has this large inheritance and this bag of coins that he doesn't know what to do with, so he just keeps spending it because why not? And him and Ron are enjoying themselves, like just totally gorging out on this junk food that neither one of them are probably used to having on a regular basis, if ever. And we meet this kid that we've already met before, this Draco Malfoy. He's a rotten apple, rotten to the core, as they say, Matt.
They do.
What's that?
They do.
They do, yeah. And this was the pale kid that we met at the clothes shop at Diagon's Alley. We knew something was up with him. Boy, did we find out what it is. He's just a punk. He doesn't like anybody. He thinks he's better than everybody. Definitely doesn't have kind words to say about the Weasley family. And we already know his thoughts on Hagrid. And it's just... it sets up this conflict between Harry and this punk kid, which I'm assuming is going to develop as the story continues, because Harry got away from Dudley, the horrible kid in his life for 11 years, and now he's introduced to this other pretty awful kid. We know his family kind of dabbled in the dark side a little bit. So there's some things going on with this kid that we don't know the full extent of, but we know we should be wary of him. I think everybody's under that assumption. And we also met Hermione.
There you
go. Who kind of clashes with Ron right off the bat. Ron doesn't really like her either. Honestly, it is probably just a case of, like, when you're kids, like, you kind of pick on the kid in school that you like, you know? like you see her on the playground, you're like, I'm just gonna pick on her a little bit, you know, and I'm gonna be mean to her when she's talking to me, and kid things, you know. So I don't know, maybe that's what's going on here. Hard to tell. Ron doesn't really seem too fond of her. She kind of looks down on Harry and Ron, but by the end of the episode, she kind of falls into this protector role, and is starting to develop as a friend in this duo that's going to probably help them along in their journey, I would assume. And we met a rat who likes to bite people, but mostly he likes to sleep, which is pretty cool. It's a cool rat if I've ever heard of one. And, you know, one thing we forgot to talk about, Matt.
Yeah?
That I'm just now thinking about. We totally skipped over is we found out that the bank ran by the goblins got robbed.
It's true.
We found out about it, but we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was mentioned that it happened, but yeah, like I said, we don't really have any details about it at this point.
Right.
So yeah, not a lot to talk about, but yes, no. the bank. Well, the bank was broken into.
Right. Harry was perplexed by that because he kept thinking about how this is like the safest place you could possibly like have stuff. Like, how could it be broken into? Like, he had this little conversation with himself about it. But then at the end of the chapter, they got in these magical boats and they floated across this island, this waterway, to this magical looking castle, which ironically is probably very magical. And this is going to be the introduction into Hogwarts because first thing, or I guess before the boats, Hagrid the giant, was responsible for taking all the first year kids to the school. So Hagrid once again showing how needed and well respected he is. And yeah, it was good for Harry to step off the train and see a familiar face, and here we go to Hogwarts.
Yep, it's time to have some fun.
All right.
So, as I do at the beginning of every chapter, we have some new characters. But this time I'm not going to spend nearly as much time as them because there is a long list. Most of them are just mentions.
Yeah.
Chapter 7 is called The Sorting Hat. And as we'll get into, this is where we get to meet more or less Harry's entire class, like all the students that are all the other first years that are coming in with him. So there's a lot of names. You're not going to need to know all of them. If you need to know them, they'll come back. We'll cover them then. But we met Peeves the Poltergeist. There is a bit of a different definition for poltergeist than we have for some other characters that we meet, such as the Fat Friar, who is a ghost.
Right.
Then we met, here's the long list: Hannah Abbott, Susan Bones, which actually I'm going to stop right there because do you recognize that last name?
Bones.
I
do not, no.
I should have made a better note of this.
And I don't even remember that name being mentioned.
It was very briefly,
okay.
But there was a reason I mentioned it.
Okay.
So back in, let's see, this was chapter 4.
Okay.
When Hagrid was explaining he explained what Voldemort had been doing.
Okay.
And he mentioned that he had killed off a bunch of other good wizarding families.
Oh, right. Okay.
Including the McKinnons, the Bones, and the Pruitts.
Oh, okay.
So I believe there is a relation here. Or at least you can assume there's a relation here.
Sure, yeah.
Because we run across Bones again. So Susan Bones, Terry Boot, Mandy Brocklehurst, Lavender Brown, Millicent Bulstrode, Justin Finch Fletchley, Seamus Finnegan, good Irish name, Morag McDougall. Then a couple of these here, we just have last names because they're kind of working in the background with the Sorting Hat while Harry was doing other things. But we have Moon, Knott, Parkinson, another pair of twins, Patil and Patil, Sally Ann Perks, Dean Thomas, Lisa Turpin, and Blaze Zabini. Yeah, that's a good name.
Yeah.
We have two more ghosts that we met. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, also known as Nearly Headless Nick. And the Bloody Baron is also a ghost.
Okay.
We had a mention of Neville, who we met earlier on the train. His great uncle Algie and great aunt Enid. And then we also got our first glimpse of Professor Snape, who we don't know a lot about yet, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we will.
We will.
Was that all from Chapter 7 or 7 and 8?
That was all Chapter 7.
Okay. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 8, I don't think we meet nearly as many new people. Yeah. But we just got to Hogwarts. There's a lot of new faces, and they mention a lot of them.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, this chapter is all about the first years coming to Hogwarts and what happens to them. Like you said, Hagrid just brought them over on the boats, and they're set to wait in this area inside the castle, but kind of there's nothing to see. You know, it's just kind of this waiting room.
Right.
Until Professor McGonagall comes out and meets them and brings them into the Great Hall. And this is where they find out about the sorting ceremony.
Right.
So
I feel like they just like jumped in here. Like, I understand like why they did it, but like as I'm reading, I'm like, really? They're already getting down to this? Like, this is big to do right off the bat here.
Yeah,
These kids just got here.
It's true, but at this point, like you need to be sorted into your houses before you can really do anything. Before you have a place to sit. Before you know who when they start explaining about the houses and stuff. Like, it makes more sense if you have your house,
right?
So you know a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is a big deal, and it kind of amazed me how like well kept a secret this ceremony was.
Yeah.
Like all the first years were sitting there wondering, and even though I'm sure some of them, well, we know Ron for sure had older siblings, and maybe some of these other people, if they don't have older siblings, their parents possibly that attended Hogwarts and would have gone through the ceremony, but it seems like none of these first years know what happens at the ceremony. Right. And so they're wondering, oh, this is some kind of test. Is it going to hurt? Am I going to have to cast these spells? Or, they have no idea what's going on, no idea what to expect. And so they come into the Great Hall, and Professor McGonagall explains that, oh, we have this hat. Yeah. It's the sorting hat. And we're going to place it on your head, and it's going to put you in your house.
Right.
And I just have to say, I really like the idea of schoolhouses like this. Not only, I mean, it kind of gives you the feeling of like in high school, I had a homeroom.
Right.
Where they always told me, at least, the purpose was to get you to kind of integrate with other students. It was a time for that, and a time to allow you to get to know some of the upperclassmen.
Right.
Because you'd have students from every year in your homeroom, and so that's kind of what the houses do too. I think it's almost kind of like dorms in college.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yep. Kind of that same thing. It's getting all these students together in one place, and you're going to have this connection with this group of students. You can still interact with students from other houses.
Sure.
But you're going to have this kind of home base that you can always come back to.
Yeah. This is like your family.
Yes.
Like
yes.
while
It's
you're
like
at school.
But I love too that they, from the beginning, say, this is your family, but it's also competition.
Right. Yeah.
And like anything you do can gain or lose you points.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, there's almost no rules to what can gain or lose you points.
It's very vague.
Yeah.
Which I could imagine would be super frightening to new students.
I mean, especially when you consider first years
Mm-hmm.
are 11 years old.
Right.
Like it's not like going into college where you might have a better understanding of things and how the world works and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But an 11-year-old, I guess that's roughly like middle school age. Like I always find the idea of middle school a little bit weird because I always attended private schools, and so I had a K-8 school,
Okay.
and then high school.
Sure.
So there was no middle school for me.
Okay.
So that idea of going to middle school and like I think a lot of people in middle school already kind of get that high school aspect where you get to like pick your classes a little bit.
Right.
It's not always dictated for you. Well, all the 7th graders are having this class now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit weird for me to say, okay, yeah, at 11 you're going to a different school.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people who attended like a middle school, that's not necessarily that weird.
Right. Yeah. We have an 11-year-old in this house who's going to be attending middle school, 6th grade
Sure.
this year. So, she's kind of freaking out. And, middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it is like that first transition from like you're just in school all day and you have recess and, like elementary school is not the toughest thing in the world, to get by. It's pretty cake. Then you get to middle school and there's no more recess. You have to be responsible to getting to your classes on time and having a locker and remembering your stuff. And like there's a lot of added pressure throughout the day, on top of the fact that homework and multiple classes and subjects and everything like that. It's intense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I could see why, these first years walking into the school, I'm going to get sorted into these, houses are like, they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it basically just on top of going to a new school, it's, oh yeah, by the way, everything you do, whether it's schoolwork or not, because you're living here in this castle,
Right.
It's all one big competition.
Right. And we're always
But at the same
watching.
time, yeah, it's kind of their way of saying don't misbehave.
Yeah,
That's at least what they're hoping, I think.
absolutely.
It's kind of a way to keep kids in line. Oh, you don't want to lose points.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's a built-in discipline system without having to be monitoring it at all times.
yeah.
There's just ghosts flying around.
There are.
Like it's like this is just a thing, like we know there's giants, we know there's wizards and witches and goblins, and now there's just ghosts just flying around like it's the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland. Just whatever.
Yep.
No big thing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get much explanation or description right now.
Mm-hmm.
they are recurring characters, so we will get more on them later. But yeah, it's just another aspect that you might not expect right away.
Right.
But at the same time, when you're in this giant castle, I guess I'm not entirely surprised. Like, it doesn't feel out of place.
Sure. Makes total
Like
sense.
like we were talking about a couple episodes ago when they mentioned, Dudley shooting aliens in a video game, and that how that jumped out at us being out of place.
Right.
Like, the ghosts, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, wasn't expecting it, but it fits.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can accept that a lot easier.
Sure. There was also one thing, I don't remember if it was like a book sitting there. I don't remember the context of what it was, but there was some sort of textbook, I believe, called Hogwarts: A History.
Yes.
Now, Fantastic Beasts and Where They Come From, we know that's a textbook.
And where to find them, but
and
yes.
Where to find them. What did I say?
And where they come from.
And Where They Come From. That's the sequel. So we know that that's a textbook within, Hogwarts, Harry Potter, that they're making a movie, and that was its own book and whatnot.
Yes.
How amazing, just on just what I've read so far, would Hogwarts: A History be to just dive into?
Yeah, I would be very interested in it, definitely, and I'm sure a lot of other people would as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a harder sell to actually get someone to put the money behind it.
Sure.
But at the same time, I mean, so they should know that anything connected to Harry Potter is going to sell.
Right.
Like the new book that just came out, The Cursed Child, I believe was already, just from pre-orders, was the #1 bestseller in the entire books category on Amazon.
Sure.
So Harry Potter sells.
Yeah.
Like they could run with this for a little while. So yeah,
but I don't know, over the course of 7 books, how much they talk about the history of Hogwarts. I know some things are brought up here and there about different things that happen, but it feels like there is a rich history here that I don't know how well it's explored.
They'll bring up different events from the past, and they'll explain some things about the founding of it and that kind of thing. But you're right, there is a lot they could explore.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact that Hogwarts: A History, and it always gets me that it's always addressed in that manner.
Right.
Hogwarts: A History, Hogwarts, a history.
Yeah.
And there is so much there that I think they could easily put it into movie form, except I think it would almost have to be done documentary style.
Mm.
And I think that might throw some people off.
What if they did it The Office style? Where they just cut to interviews, sitting talking to the camera about things that are going on.
I honestly, however they wanted to do it, I think I would be okay with it.
That'd be rad.
Personally, I don't mind documentary style, so that wouldn't bother me. But I know a lot of people, when they hear documentary, they're like, no thanks. But yeah, I would be okay with however they did it. If they did Office style, I would be okay with that.
Sure. It was just one thing that it was just not even important to the chapter at all, but knowing what I know of Fantastic Beasts and such, I'm like, that would be fascinating. Because I'm already intrigued by this giant castle of a school, so give me more.
There's definitely a lot they could talk about. Yeah. We already have enough information about it. I think that, I mean, they'd have to fill in some gaps for sure, but that there's enough interesting things out there already that it could be done.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. That was
not a problem.
One thing that caught my attention.
We moved into the Great Hall. We have the Sorting Hat, which is going to be placed on the first year's heads. Mm-hmm. But before it gets placed on anybody's head, do you remember what it does?
It has a pretty dope rhyme.
It sings. It actually sings a song.
I read it as a rap in my head, man.
However you want to do it, that's fine by me. But the important part about this song is it's our first description of the 4 Hogwarts houses. Let me see if I can pull it up quick here. So, yeah, I'll just read it through quick. Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat, and I can cap them all. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can't see, so try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin, you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap. Great song by any means. Yes, but he has no hands. He can...
In theory, Matt. In theory.
Okay. So, after reading through that, did you try to place yourself in one of the 4 houses?
Now, see, I wish I would have gone into this without any sort of assistance ahead of time. You know, gone in completely pure, not knowing anything up until that. That would have been fun. Here's the problem, is when we went to Universal Studios and we're standing in line for an amazing ride at Harry Potter, we were discussing which house I would be in. And I think the overall consensus was Ravenclaw.
Okay.
Which I feel okay with. I feel pretty good about.
All right.
Slytherin's not my thing. I just, that's, again, I don't know why they're still around. I don't know why they're allowed to be a house, but whatever. It's not for me to judge, I guess. Gryffindor just doesn't, it seems a little too much for me. Like, a little too alpha male, you know?
Yep. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's not me. Whatever. Like, I appreciate the fact that they're around and they do their thing, but, nah. Hufflepuff, like, sure, I could probably fit in with a Hufflepuff, too. Let's not kid ourselves here. Like, I could probably do well in that household. So, between one of those two, but I think I'm okay leaning towards the Ravenclaw.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I think the first time I read this, really, especially, like, the vast majority of people gravitate towards Gryffindor. Mm-hmm. Like, that's Harry Potter's house.
Sure.
You want to be a Gryffindor. Like, it's the place to be, yeah. But the more I thought about it, like, you know, that's probably not where I belong. Mm-hmm. The cosmetic part of me wants to be in Slytherin. Green is my favorite color. And green and black, that combination, it tops everything. So the fact that I would get to wear green and black like all the time, I want to be Slytherin, no doubt.
Sure.
But character-wise, not so much.
Yeah.
That's not me. Just looking at the characteristics listed out here, so then we're down to Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw. Hufflepuff, you have just, loyal, patient, and essentially hardworking, unafraid of toil. Ravenclaw, you have wit, learning, and ready mind. So, like, Ravenclaw, I fear that, like, I wouldn't be able to quite live up to their academic standards, kind of.
Okay.
Whereas Hufflepuff, I think I fit right in.
Sure.
I consider myself to be loyal. I'm extremely patient, and I'm no stranger to hard work.
Right.
So like Hufflepuff is like, as much as they get made fun of, which going into it, you know, if I were a first year, I probably wouldn't know much of anything about any of these houses.
Mm-hmm.
And so just hearing this song being like my first introduction to the houses,
Yeah.
I'd probably say Hufflepuff is where I belong.
Sure. As long as you didn't hear people making fun of Hufflepuffs beforehand.
It's true.
Then
It's
you're just
true.
like, oh no, not Hufflepuff. Anything but Hufflepuff. Give me Slytherin, I don't care. Just not a Hufflepuff. Those poor Hufflepuffs.
Yeah, they have it rough.
I feel like the name doesn't really help their cause any either.
Nope, not at all.
Like, they could have at least given them a cool name, you know, to just avoid, like, them being made fun of, but he just went all in with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So now my next question for you, which I forgot to ask before we started recording.
Yeah.
Have you visited Pottermore?
Nope.
Okay.
I know we talked about it.
Do you have any problem pausing the episode here?
Pause. You want to do it live?
It's going to take like 5 minutes, so probably not live.
Well, how about you keep talking, and I'll go to Pottermore. Is it Pottermore.com?
Yes, Pottermore.com.
Okay. What am I doing here, Matt?
All right.
For the
so
people listening at home.
At Pottermore.com, I mean, if any of you listening haven't done this, you should probably go ahead and do it too.
Okay.
So you're going to go there, create an account.
Okay.
I think all you need is like name and email.
Okay.
Nothing too tricky.
Begin the journey, it says.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is it's a website that was, I don't know if it was necessarily created by J.K. Rowling, but it was created with J.K. Rowling's help. And I believe, from what I understand at least, she is on there quite often, and she is creating content for it quite often.
Okay.
And this is where a lot of people get extra background about the Harry Potter universe, I guess. Right. But what we want to go in there for is they have a short quiz, kind of. I mean, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to these questions, but it's going to sort you into your house.
I see a big old banner that says, join your Hogwarts house.
There you go. That's what you're looking for.
Okay. We're going. We're doing this, Matt. Now, didn't we do this as a poll question also?
We did. So the Muggle poll for this episode was simply, which Hogwarts house would you be in? And now I didn't give you any parameters. You could be basing this, like I said, off of your first reading of the song. Mm-hmm. You could, maybe you are already a member over at Pottermore and you know which house you were sorted into, or maybe you picked your favorite color and went with Slytherin. Who knows? So in any case, I was actually really surprised with our results from the poll.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I, hands down, the poll started out the way I expected. Gryffindor taking an early lead.
Right.
Again,
people like the cool kids.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, I thought for sure everybody would place themselves in Gryffindor if they had a choice. But I don't know if more people analyzed it closer, like we just did, or if more people are on Pottermore and that's where they got placed actually, or what happened. But Ravenclaw actually won out.
Really?
Yeah. At 39%, Ravenclaw won our poll, compared to 33% for Gryffindor.
Okay. Where'd Slytherin come in?
Slytherin's down at the bottom.
Good.
So Hufflepuff was actually at 17%, and Slytherin only had 11.
All right. That's the way I like it.
So yeah, small Slytherin class here.
Man, these are tough questions, Matt. Late at night, walking alone down the street, you hear a peculiar cry that you believe to have a magical source. Do you? Man. Anyway, so the poll.
Yeah,
I like how that
yeah.
ended up.
I do too. Like it's not what I expected, and so I mean, you guys out there are surprising me too. It's. I mean, I put these questions out there, and I I typically answer them too, at least in my head. Whether this one actually did throw my input on there based on my Pottermore house.
Okay.
So I won't get into that yet. I want to wait and see what you get.
Okay.
But
I'm selecting my pet right now, Matt. There's a lot of cats to choose from.
once you get through the cats, I think you have to go through all the owls then.
Yeah, but I feel better about that. Cat. Get out of here. Tabby cat. Siamese cat.
Hey, I'm just glad they give you options instead of just
Just
cat, owl, or toad.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, because that gives them a lot more options, and I like the way that they set up that quiz, so it's not like I'm sure someone has gone through to figure out what answers get you what results, but I'm glad that there are enough that it's not an easy job to go through and figure that out.
Sure.
It's not like, oh, if you pick owl, you're going to be in this class.
Here's the thing, Matt. I just something just got spoiled for me here.
Did it?
There's trolls in this story. Trolls have gone berserk in the headmaster's study at Hogwarts. Oh my goodness gracious, Matt.
Well, I will tell you right now. Yes, there are trolls. they didn't just make that up for the question. Trolls do exist in this universe.
Okay. All right. We'll proceed with caution, Matt. Let's see. So, Sorting Hat's pretty cool. Let's not kid ourselves here. Now, before it started going on, or maybe while it was going on, so Neville Longbottom, right? We know
Yes.
this Neville kid.
Also, I love his last name.
Yeah.
Longbottom.
Is he going to be comedic relief throughout the entire story? Is his job in this journey just to be the kid that people laugh at?
No.
Ooh, okay. Because I feel like that's how they're setting him up.
More or less, we've hit our comedic relief. The bulk of it being carried, as we mentioned earlier, by Fred and George Weasley. While other people provide moments of it here and there, no one else has that role as permanently as the Weasley twins.
Okay. Okay. We have development here on the podcast.
Yeah.
I have been sorted into a house.
And which house would that be?
We'll let you guess, Matt.
I'm really kind of hoping it's Slytherin just because.
Hufflepuff.
But Hufflepuff, really?
Yep. Yeah, place in Hufflepuff.
Congratulations.
House. Yeah. I'm thinking back on my questions now.
As much as. Yeah. And so okay, I'll tell you that I got placed in Ravenclaw.
Okay.
And as much as I thought I would be in a Hufflepuff, I did the same thing. I went back and thought about some of the answers I chose. After reading, did you get to go to your profile page where it kind of gives a little bit longer description of the house?
Yeah, I'm there. I haven't dove into that quite yet. But...
Well, there's even just a short list of characteristics or something.
More about my house here. Let's click on that. Should I read it? Here we go. Hufflepuff. You probably know that some of Hufflepuff's most renowned members include Nymphadora Tonks and Cedric Diggory. But did you know that Hufflepuff's house ghost, the Fat Friar, still resents the fact that he was never made a cardinal? Or that Hufflepuff has produced the fewest dark wizards of any house at Hogwarts? Here you can discover more about your beloved house through the writing of J.K. Rowling, articles by Pottermore, and all the latest Hufflepuff news. You can also share your Hufflepuff pride with your friends with downloadable wallpaper and house emblems. I feel like I have to do that now.
That's what they want you to do.
I'm going to download this image pack right now. Of course I am. See, I told you I could go either way. Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff.
It's true.
All right. Anyway, let's go back to Neville Longbottom here.
All right. So,
I mean, I understand, like, the twins are definitely, like, the jokesters. Like, they are there to create kind of chaos in hilarious ways.
Yep.
But poor Neville Longbottom, like, I just feel like this kid's just gonna things are just gonna keep happening to this kid.
Sure.
Just one after another. And it's not like horrible things. It's just, I worry about him a little bit.
Well, I mean, the first time we run across him, like, he lost his toad.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I mean, that's his role for the entire first chapter. We didn't really bring that up when they were on the train,
Right?
but like he was mentioned a couple times. You know, have you seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one.
Right.
Like he's just looking for his toad. Like he was. I think the very first time he was mentioned was in the station before they got on the train. That's when he was talking to his gran, and he was kind of downtrodden already because he couldn't find his toad.
Right.
And so it's just, that's, you know, as we've said with other characters, that first impression we get of them might be a bit exaggerated, but it's playing into their character.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think, I think you can kind of, infer from that we'll probably see more of that from him.
Probably, yeah. Let's see. From there, is that when the Sorting Hat started getting to work?
Yep. Then we start calling the kids up, alphabetical order.
Oh,
and
whoa!
Yeah.
Before that, hold on. We met a house ghost, nearly headless Nick.
Did we meet him yet?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. I don't know how my notes go.
Because I don't think we actually met him till they were sitting down at the table.
You sure?
Yeah. It's possible, but I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you're right. Maybe, I don't know. Question. Just one question. Is there only one house ghost? Like, does every house just have one ghost? Like, one, like, I wasn't really clear how that works.
So I believe, yes, there is only one house ghost, but there are other ghosts besides the house ghost.
Right. But every house has just one specified house ghost.
It's kind of like each house has a teacher or professor that's in charge of it.
Okay.
The head of house. But there are other teachers, obviously.
Right. Okay.
But there is a head of house that's one of the teachers that's in charge of the house. Each house has a ghost. Each house has a prefect that we know, like Percy's the prefect for Gryffindor.
Right.
So yeah, that I think it's in that respect. Like each house kind of gets, you know, one of everything.
Okay. That's how I read it, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, you can go to the sorting now. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So the sorting hat, it's this magical hat.
Mm-hmm.
We already know that it talks and sings. But we find out then, well, we don't really find out until we get a close up of Harry Potter getting the hat put on his head.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of get an in-depth look, and it turns out that the hat can basically read your mind, which is a little bit creepy.
Yeah, a little bit.
And like it has the ability to just speak to the person wearing the hat, because it's not made perfectly clear, but Harry basically has this conversation with the hat in his head.
Right.
Like the hat talks back to him in his head, and he responds to it, and they go through this little progression, and then finally the hat yells out so everybody can hear Gryffindor. Like that's the only thing he says out loud is which house you're going to be in. But the hat seems to have a conversation with each student in their head.
Right.
So it's kind of weird, but kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like the hat can, get a better feeling for who you are.
Right.
But at the same time, it also seems like Harry almost influenced the hat, which seemed a little weird. Like what I got to be like an all-knowing hat that was supposed to sort you into your house and know the best place for you, but Harry kept repeating, "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin," and the hat was like, "Well, you would do very well in Slytherin." Like it wanted to place him in Slytherin, but it sounded like Harry talked him out of it, and so he placed him in Gryffindor.
Sure. The best part about this was like the fact that it took so long for this to happen with Harry, and other kids was like instantly like, Hufflepuff, get off the stage. Like we're like I don't even need to be on your head to know you're a Hufflepuff. Like let's move this along.
Well, the one that was really notable was Draco Malfoy.
Mm-hmm.
When they said, that the hat didn't even touch his head before he yelled out Slytherin.
Yep.
Like, no question about it.
It's bad mojo right there.
Yep.
Fascinating hat, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like it.
So,
it's cool.
we have Harry in Gryffindor. Hermione ended up in Gryffindor.
Mm-hmm.
Ron ended up in Gryffindor as well.
Right.
Even though, like, he was kind of hoping for Gryffindor because the rest of his family has all been Gryffindors. Until Hermione got sent to Gryffindor. Then all of a sudden he didn't want to be in Gryffindor.
Anything but Gryffindor.
But I guess that those family ties were just too strong.
Yeah.
He ended up in Gryffindor as well. Let's see.
Neville was in Gryffindor?
Neville was in Gryffindor, yes. Who else have we met that...
That's about it.
Yeah. Those are our main characters so far.
I mean, it kind of like cemented the core group of characters with this sorting hat ceremony.
Yep.
Yeah,
so I mean, there are a couple others. We got their specific houses, but we don't really know anything else about them other than they have a name and they're in this house.
Right.
So.
And just to clarify, so once you are selected in the house, like that's only for first year kids, right? And then you're in that house the rest of your time there. You don't get sorted every year you come back.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's only a ceremony for the first years.
Okay.
And once you're in a house, you're stuck there.
Sure. Okay.
There's no switching. There's no trades. No free agents.
Right. It'd be a cool draft.
Yeah. The wizard draft. Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah. So everybody gets sorted.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a little bit display of Dumbledore's humor. And I like that they show this here, that he's not 100% serious all the time. Like, I think we kind of got that in the first chapter already, when he was sitting there eating lemon drops and, Professor McGonagall was still all uptight and serious.
Right.
But once again, we see Dumbledore's humor because he gets up, welcomes everybody to Hogwarts, and says, I would like to say a few words. And here they are. Nitwit, Blubber, Oddment, and Tweak. Those are a few words.
They
sure
are.
enough. Yes,
Yep.
yes, they are, Dumbledore. Thank you for that. And that's the end of his speech.
Mhm.
I mean, which is great because, you know, at that point, everybody was just ready to eat.
Right.
And they were all sitting down at these huge tables, and oh boy, did they eat.
Made me hungry reading this.
Yeah, I mean, so much food, and the fact that it just magically appears and disappears when you're done.
Yep.
Like, I love that kitchen, that table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, question, and nothing to do with the food, because it's making me hungry again. So from what I gather, as they were talking and kind of everything was playing out here, so you're born a wizard or a witch, like, despite your parents being a wizard or witch or not. Like, from what I gathered, there were some kids that were there who both parents weren't magical. Like, one was a muggle and one was magical.
Yeah, they all have very different backstories.
Do you have to have at least one parent that's magical? Or can
No.
two muggles create a magical kid?
I believe we will find out later that, yes, that two muggle parents can produce a witch or wizard.
Okay. It's just less likely, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that wasn't really clear until this chapter about how kids became, you know,
Yep.
wizards and witches.
But I mean that's why, and at the same time, I don't know if you caught it, but they almost implied that it's especially in Neville's case, was the big one, that they thought he might not have
Right.
magical ability,
Right.
even though his parents did.
Mm-hmm. Because it didn't come on until super late.
Yeah. So it can kind of go either way.
Mm.
Like, and that's why Hogwarts tracks these people and sends them letters when they've been, you know, accepted to the school.
Right.
When they've shown that they have some magical ability.
Sure. I had to clear that up because it had never really been really clarified or even talked about up until this chapter. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's what they tried to do in this chapter, is show that they almost gave an example of every possible combination, I think.
Yeah.
They didn't explain all of them fully, but they at least implied that, you know, my mom was a witch, my dad wasn't. But, you know, and then Neville, who has a long line of magic in his family, but he almost didn't. And there's just so many different situations that can come up, but it's still almost always possible.
Sure. Let's see. I was not a fan of the school song. I just like the wording of it. Like it didn't strike me as anything I enjoyed at all.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because like Dumbledore lets them all sing it to their own tune.
I appreciated that.
Like it doesn't have an actual. They don't like they have words to a school song.
Yeah.
But they don't have an actual song for the school song.
Like nobody ever sat down and like made a melody to this. It's just like we wrote these words and do whatever you want with them.
Yep.
Like,
Which
like the Weasley twins did.
Yes, a nice funeral dirge, I believe.
They're the last ones to finish, and everybody's just sitting there waiting for them.
Yep. But anybody who's been at school for more than a year is probably used to that.
Right.
So I think they all enjoyed it. And Dumbledore too, I think that's just part of his personality. He enjoyed seeing what people came up with, and I think he mentions then music, a magic beyond all we do here.
Right.
And being a music person myself, I love to hear that.
Sure.
There are some great quotes about music, not only here but from other prominent people in history, and they always make me smile because I love and appreciate music very much. I grew up in a very musical family, and so it's I'm glad to see that other people appreciate it as well.
Right. Totally. One thing.
Yep.
One thing that stuck out. Which we find out in chapter 8, which we'll be talking about here shortly.
Yes.
When Professor Snape looked at Harry, his scar started to hurt.
Yeah.
Very curious.
Very curious.
What's that
Especially since we've seen in the past or been told in the past that Harry his instincts seem to be very good.
Right.
And I believe it was Dumbledore that mentioned that Harry's scar would be useful in the future.
Right.
So, not entirely sure what that means, but it seems like it might be coming into play already.
It's like a bad guy detector. It's like his third eye.
Something like that. So
yeah, definitely hinted at it, and they didn't put much focus on it because it was going to lead into chapter 8, which there was a heavy focus on that playing out. But I definitely picked up on that in chapter 7 for sure. So
yeah, definitely something to note.
One thing I thought of at the end of the chapter was just like, as they talked about the kids marching off into their rooms to settle in for the night and, you know, put their stuff away and whatever. Like, in my head, all I was thinking about was what a crazy day this was, you know, for all the first years, of course, but all of them kind of have been, like, familiarized with this world and things that happen. For Harry, though, other than Diagon's Alley, like, this is all brand new stuff.
Yeah.
So could you imagine just like, so you've had a long day, you know, you've left the family that you've been living with for 11 years, you know, for the first time really, who you didn't really like and they didn't like you. So no sweat off your skin, but you know, it still was weird to abandon one family, go to this place that you've never heard of up until recently. You have no real idea where it is. All these weird things are happening. You have this amazing meal. You're meeting all these incredible people. You're like your life is being sorted out essentially by this weird talking hat, and like all this like ghosts are flying around and this magical hall. And at the end of the day, like you're tired and you're full of food and all you want to do is sleep. And all I would like be thinking about is like, this is just a dream. Like this is unbelievable. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be back at, you know, Dursley household and everything's going to suck again.
Yep.
That's how I was picturing just like that last scene of them like walking to bed, of just like you're in that place of you're so tired where just nothing really feels real, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Harry kind of already had that experience once, though, just when he first met Hagrid.
Yeah.
And, you know, he even said he thought up, he woke up the next morning thinking that it was going to be just a dream, and, you know, he was going to be back at the Dursleys, and, you know, it hadn't happened at all. But, you know, he woke up and Hagrid was still there, and it's like, oh, this is real.
Right.
And so after that experience, and then after Diagon Alley, like I think he's starting to see, okay, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still amazing, wonderful, and a lot of unknowns, but I think he's getting closer to realizing and accepting that this is my life now, and this could change things for me.
I'm just, I guess, mixing it in with the perspective of like just how exhausting that first day would be.
Yeah.
You know, especially with this like most amazing meal that he's probably ever had in his entire life. And just everything, like the train ride and, you know, the boats to the house and just everything, you know, like he knows it's real, yes, but like once that exhaustion hits that, you hit that wall with exhaustion, and then you just keep going forward. Like you get into that weird mood where things are a little hazy, and sometimes you're not sure if you are asleep or not, or
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking some pretty strong thoughts during that last scene of the chapter for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that about wraps up chapter 7.
Yeah.
Moving right along in chapter 8 then.
Mm-hmm.
Titled The Potions Master. Could also very well just be titled Harry's First Day of School.
Right.
Like I said, our character list for this chapter is much shorter. We meet Mrs. Norris. You remember who that is?
No. Somebody he met in Dagon's Alley?
No. Mrs. Norris is actually a cat.
Ah, that's right.
The cat that belongs to Mr. Filch, who is the more or less. I tend to think of him as like a hall monitor.
Right.
He's always kind of roaming around looking for troublemakers.
Right.
And his cat, Mrs. Norris, has a nose for trouble as well.
Mm.
She seems to be able to sniff it out wherever things are going down.
Cats and trouble just go hand in hand. Let's just throw that out there.
Yep. And then we get at least mentions of a couple of the other teachers. Professor Sprout, Professor Binns, and Professor Flitwick.
I like that last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't find out too much about them. Yeah, okay, they do mention which classes they teach, I guess. Professor Sprout teaches herbology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
naturally,
that's one of those. It's like, yeah, if your name is Sprout, you have to, Professor Binns is a very interesting case. He teaches history.
Mm-hmm.
And he is actually the only ghost teacher.
I love the irony of that.
Yes. Because he fell asleep at his desk one day, died, and got up and kept teaching.
Yep. Again, Dumbledore doesn't have like the greatest screening policies as far as who's letting teach these classes.
Hey, but the great part is, like, as you go further and further along in history, like, Professor Binns actually lived through all of that history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was there.
Yeah.
Like, how many history teachers do you have that can, say, yeah, I lived during the Civil War,
Sure.
It doesn't happen that way anymore.
Maybe
so,
Dumbledore's just a big picture type of thinker.
Who knows? And Professor Flitwick is their charms teacher.
Right.
Which we don't have I don't think there's a big description of what the charms class is necessarily, but we'll definitely get into that more later.
Sure.
So this chapter, we get a better description of Hogwarts as a castle.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that it has 142 staircases, which I love little bits of trivia like that.
Right.
So 142 staircases, and like they're all different types, including staircases that move, and staircases that have a missing step, and staircases that have trick steps that you can fall through, and like it just gets me to think, like, okay, it's magic, it's fun, but like, who designed that? Why would you make staircases that move or staircases that have holes in them? Like,
sure,
wouldn't you just use your magic to fix that? Or but like, the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, well, maybe it's almost like a security measure. Like, if the staircases are moving all the time and you can get stuck in staircases, like the students, I mean, the first years are going to have some learning to do.
Right.
But after your first year, the students are going to know all these tricks of the staircases, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyone with knowledge of it's going to be just fine. But if someone would, try to sneak in and try to find their way around, like they could easily get lost.
Right.
And so maybe that's part of the purpose. I don't know.
I don't know. It's fun to think about.
Yeah. But yeah, we follow Harry around on his first day. He and Ron get to stick together a lot because their group of the first year Gryffindor students all have class together.
Right.
So they're always going to be together with Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville. They're always going to class together.
Sure.
And Ron and Harry hang out even outside of class.
Yeah.
But they, just on their first day already, get on Mr. Filch's bad side. Mm-hmm. Because they find themselves on the third floor corridor on the right-hand side, which we learned during the opening ceremony from Dumbledore that was out of bounds.
Yeah, you don't go there.
No, unless you wish to die a most painful death.
Yeah.
Like, a great way to welcome your students to school.
Way to make them feel safe.
Yep. But at the same time, it's like, I did note that even the upperclassmen thought that was a kind of weird request.
Right.
Like, that this wasn't something that they heard every year. Mm-hmm. Like, they all knew the forest was out of bounds. That was something that was out of bounds every year. You don't go to the forest.
Right.
But this third floor corridor on the right-hand side was out of bounds, and that was weird.
Yeah.
And somehow, unfortunately, Harry and Ron ended up there. Mrs. Norris and Mr. Filch found him there, and did not turn out well.
Yeah. Kids will be kids, right?
Yeah. We found out about all the classes that Harry was taking, as I mentioned before, with some of the teachers: herbology, history of magic, charms, transfiguration, which is taught by Professor McGonagall, defense against the dark arts, which a couple chapters ago we met Professor Quirrell, who is the defense against the dark arts teacher, although maybe he shouldn't be.
Yep, still question that decision, Dumbledore.
We did also find out that Professor Snape wants his job. He wants the defense against the dark arts job.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he is stuck teaching potions.
Right.
Which turns out to be Harry's least favorite class then.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Not only is Professor Snape teaching it, which he has a bad feeling about, but it's what they call a double period with the Slytherins.
Right.
So normally they get to have class by themselves with just the other Gryffindors. Potions, they have to have class with the Slytherins.
Sure. I feel like if he was having class with like the Hufflepuffs, like everything would have been cool.
Yeah.
Like he just didn't want to be in the same room with the Slytherins.
Yep. And it of course doesn't help then that we also find out that Professor Snape is the head of the Slytherin house.
Right.
So he's kind of, favoring them already. And at least Harry thinks Snape hates him.
Right. Well, I mean, he immediately starts picking on him.
Yeah.
In a professor-student kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't really know why, he's picking on him, but he definitely is.
Yeah.
And I'll just put this out there right now. Snape, as bad as he seems, he is definitely one of my favorite characters. So something to keep an eye on.
Sure.
I very much enjoy Snape.
Okay. We also found out that we didn't find out. It was cemented, I think, that Hermione was a know-it-all.
Absolutely.
Haven't we always, like, in every class, in every school in the history of the world, there's been a Hermione in that class?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
There's always that one kid.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always at least one.
Yeah, at least.
if there's more than one, it can either be really entertaining or or really annoying.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that everybody knows Hermione.
Sure. I just love the fact that she's just aggressively raising her hand as aggressively as she possibly can.
Like at one point, she even like stands up.
Yeah.
Like
I just imagine her like holding up her arm with like her other hand at like the elbow, like pick me.
Yeah.
Like just losing it, and Snape's like, "No, sorry, this isn't
no,
about you.
I'm gonna pick on this kid over here."
And she doesn't even care that it's about anybody else. It's just like it to her, like that was a bigger insult than like what he was doing to Harry.
Yep.
It's just cracking me up.
It's good stuff.
Poor Harry, though.
Poor Harry, indeed.
Got points taken away from his house.
Yep.
Didn't even know why.
I mean that's what I was saying. That like they don't have a lot of rules for when they can give or take away points. It's kind of very subjective.
Yeah. Especially when like the leaders of the house are allowed to take points away from other houses.
Yep.
You know, like it seems like a conflict of interest, if you ask me. What do I know?
But I mean, at the same time, I mean, the other heads of house could just as easily take away from your house. So
yeah.
I mean, I think if there was anything too drastic, like you know, Dumbledore might step in or something and say, "Yeah, you can't do that."
Sure.
Like he probably has final say.
Yeah.
But
it'd be like watching a football game and each team has their own set of referees on the field. Like it could get ugly real quick, Matt. Real quick.
It's true. It's true.
As long as the lines were painted correctly, would be fine though.
Oh, well put.
So how did we finish up this first day of school?
Well, Harry got a nice surprise. He did he actually get? Was it just note or what was this mail? Did Hedwig deliver that note?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so he basically got his first piece of mail, which was exciting because you know every morning at breakfast the owls swooped in and delivered everybody's mail, which has to be a sight to see too.
Right.
It's massive owls flying in while you're eating, and but he got a note from Hagrid asking him to come and visit after he was done with classes. Tell him about his first week of school, and
which he needed that. He needed a
absolutely. Yeah. Like Hagrid is even when everybody else is kind of picking on him, especially after the potions class, you know. Hagrid is the bright spot for Harry.
Yep.
He was a friendly face, someone he knows, someone who's going to cheer him up, someone who will listen to him. You know, he can just kind of rant if he wants to, and you know, he's gonna care about what Harry says.
Yeah, not worried about the houses and the point system or all of the inner working politics of the school.
Sure.
Yeah. And he took Ron with him.
Yeah, brought him along. Show him that Hagrid is a good guy too.
Hagrid's house definitely seems like the type of house I would hang out in.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know, a lot of weird little stuff going on in that house. I was just like, you know what? That's Hagrid. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just overall.
And so then, actually, at the very end of this chapter, I knew we didn't skip it yet. What you mentioned at the beginning, you thought was at the end of the previous chapter. This is when we actually find out about the Gringotts break-in. Yep.
Well, there's no way because I put it in my notes.
It's in my notes right here.
Well, he read about it in chapter 6 on the train. No, he didn't read about it. Somebody mentioned it. It was a brief mention on the train. Because in Hagrid's house is where he reads about it in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a mention of it on the train.
There's a...
Gringotts got
maybe.
robbed, because I had Gringotts got robbed with like 10 question marks because there was no other information, and like up until that point you thought like this was like the most like secure place ever. So that was like when it was like it wasn't even determined that like nothing was stolen, it was just a break-in because somebody had mentioned something about the place getting robbed. I promise you, Matt.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Because I did these notes as we were reading, and I didn't like go back and make the notes after the fact. So
Maybe Val read the chapters out of order.
so you're saying the train happened after he got to Hogwarts?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, they get. He reads about it in the paper here,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they find out that they were going after. Let's see, yeah, break-in happened on my birthday. It might have happened while they were there.
Right.
And the vault that was searched had in fact been emptied earlier that same day.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's starting to put two and two together here.
yep, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Still doesn't know what,
Right.
and Hagrid still won't talk about it.
Right.
But something is definitely going on.
Right. Also, we found out that Hagrid probably knows something about Snape that he's not talking about either.
It's possible.
It's possible. Like, he alluded to possibly knowing something about this Snape guy.
I mean, Hagrid has been around for a while,
Mm-hmm.
so and he does hang out at the school.
Sure.
I mean, he lives just outside the school.
He just didn't seem very surprised that Snape was kind of targeting Harry, though.
Sure.
Like, it didn't shock him. It didn't anger him. As, like, I would imagine if there was someone else picking on or kind of bullying Harry, he would have been a little bit more defensive about it. Maybe ruffled his feathers, but this one is like, yeah, kind of figured that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Very curious, Matt. Very curious.
Curious indeed.
Also, before we wrap it up here,
Yeah.
the Weasley twins' reputation precedes them everywhere they go.
Everywhere they go. They have definitely made a name for themselves. Whether it's good or not, that kind of remains to be seen. But
Sure.
yeah, everybody knows the Weasley twins.
Yeah. Which I'm sure makes Ron like even more uncomfortable because he's like the younger, you know, he's
He's next in line right after the twins.
right.
So it's like, if that was people's first impression, like, okay, so Bill and Charlie are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Percy is a prefect.
Right.
He's still at school. But then you have Fred and George. So, you know, for a lot of people, Fred and George is probably their first impression of the Weasleys.
Right.
So that they have that impression of the Weasleys, and that, oh, another Weasley, Ron,
Oh.
do something funny.
Yeah. Poor Ron. Yeah, that was kind of it was a weird chapter.
Yeah, I mean, more introduction yet.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to the school, really. This is the first week at school.
Yeah.
So it's still, we had so much to set up, you know, at Harry's house. And then we had to introduce you to the Wizarding World. And now we have to introduce you to Hogwarts. So that's the thing with first book in a series. Like, there's a lot to explain.
Right.
And especially in a series where you have, like, we've kind of described as like two different worlds that they have to set up too.
Yeah. Yeah, but this chapter was just kind of like, oh, this is just day-to-day normal operations at Hogwarts, you know, like nothing completely out of the ordinary happened. Like, Harry is like now fully just, yeah, this is just the way it is. You know, he's not shocked or taken back by anything he sees anymore, I don't feel like. You know, other than like people not liking him for no apparent reason whatsoever. But other than that, he's just like, this is this is just normal life now for Harry Potter. So, in that aspect, like, the chapter wasn't super exciting. It was mainly, I feel, to like introduce the Snape character and start setting up whatever.
Well, I mean, that was the name of the chapter.
Right. You know, it just like to start setting up whatever conflict or story going forward is going to be partaking between these two.
Sure.
And, you know, it's been a few chapters since we got Hagrid, so we need a little Hagrid in our lives.
Everybody needs a little Hagrid.
Yep, indeed. Is Hagrid allowed in the school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, he can pretty much wander wherever he wants, for the most part. But yeah, he lives outside. I mean, his house is out there.
Right.
He has his garden to tend to. I think that was brought up as they approached the house.
Sure. And
he is more or less the groundskeeper.
Right.
I believe that was mentioned back when we first met him.
Mm-hmm.
So he spends most of his time outside.
Yeah.
But he can definitely come in the castle.
Okay. They just haven't introduced him being in the castle at all yet. So
yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional or just hasn't worked its way into the story yet. So
no.
Perfect. Well, I mean, anything else for chapter 7 and 8, Matt?
I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah, it was good. We're in Hogwarts now. This is the thing. So now we're here.
Moving along.
Now what happens? What's gonna happen?
That's what we gotta find out.
We need some conflict. We need some adventure. We need some mystery. We need some excitement. We need some character development. Maybe some sort of love angle here. I don't know. I feel like that is probably on the horizon at some point. I don't know.
Come on. They're 11.
Professors.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I guess we have people of all ages at the school.
Sure. And, I mean, crushes happen when you're 11. I mean, it's totally normal, man.
All right.
I'm just saying, like, there's something. There needs to be something here. I don't know how soon we'll get that, but...
Yep.
7 books worth.
I promise you, all of the things mentioned, they will be coming.
Fantastic.
There will be plenty of them.
And, as we found out live on this episode, trolls.
There are trolls.
I don't know when. I don't know in what context. I don't know how or why, but I'm excited to find out, Matt.
I'm excited for you to find out.
Again, this has been episode 6, covering chapter... Is that right? Episode 6?
This is episode 5.
Episode 5, covering chapter 8. This will post...
7 and 8.
7 and 8, correct.
Yes.
Chapters 7 and 8. Episode 5, releasing on August 9th. The next episode will release on August 10th. That's a Wednesday. That will be episode 6. We will be covering chapter 9 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's going to be fun. You could find me personally on Twitter at The Noise with a Y. Also, be sure to follow the show for updates for the Muggle poll interaction, for possibly giveaways at some point, for basic overall fan interaction with you guys, the listening audience. Again, follow us on Twitter at Tales from GH. And Matt, where could people find you at?
If you want to follow me, you can head over to Twitter and find me at As a Matter of Matt. As a Matter of Matt. And if you want to send us an email, something secret you want to keep from Josh, or if just something longer that doesn't fit on Twitter so well, you can send us email at talesfromgodricshollow@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's talesfromgodricshollow@gmail.com. And other than that, I ask you to go into iTunes and hit that subscribe button. It's going to help us a lot. Get the word out about this podcast, what we're doing. Get more people to read along with us, hopefully. And have a lot of fun.
That's right. And don't forget about the giveaway. You already know the rules and how to enter. Be sure to do that quickly. Time is running out, folks. Promise you do not want to miss out on this. But until next episode, episode 6, covering chapter 9, Muggle out.
Mischief managed.